I never, ever avoided changes in my job and just looking at my everyday life. I look at it like you have to embrace every opportunity or situation that you'll face as you grow. And again, this is advice to Ezra for me. So based on my many years of experience, my being was based on my effort and attitude. Of course, now I'm retired and I don't have to worry about keeping up with all the new technologies or keeping up with the Joneses. However, just being on the internet and interfacing with other people, businesses, has been challenging during my lifetime. Remember, here's a message from me. You always have to be on your P's and Q's at all times. Knowing that you don't know what P's and Q means, I looked it up on the internet, see what the explanation of what P's and Q's are these days. So if you go back to the 1700s, P's and Q's means something such as one's manners that one should be mindful of. For example, better watch his P's and Q's when I get a six gun of my own. Now that was 1700s. Now we're talking more today. It's about best behavior. Being on her P's and Q's for 2 solid days was way too much. That's today's message. And here's another one. Today is manners, that one should be careful about always being mindful of P's and Q's around my aunts and my uncles. Those are kind of something to help you understand. If you don't understand, you'll probably have to look it up. Times change. Maybe people will never say P's and Q's. That'll be something you'll never hear. But when I was growing up, I heard it all the time. You better be on your P's and Q's, boy. So as I see it, and especially for the people in my age group, and at this point, I'm almost 78. I'm closer to 77 than 78, but I'm getting there. Most people oppose changes and hate to learn to work with any new technologies. I found this in my job when I was working in the Air Force. I remember when computers came into the Air Force in 1970 and nobody was using them. And so I got with my boss, who's the colonel, the chief engineer, and I said, look, nobody's using the computers. I can't force them to. So he told me to come up with an idea, to come up with something that make them use the computers. So what I did, I loaded video games. I'm sorry, there wasn't video games then. I loaded card games on the computers. And the oldest of the old people always played card games. So they would go on the computer and be playing with the card games. And that was the beginning of getting them used to just being on the keyboard and looking at the screens. And back in those days, the screens were about this big. They weren't very big, maybe this big. And they were green. We called them green screens. And it wasn't very comfortable compared to today, but it was much better than doing it by hand. Everything was done manually in those days. So if you filled out a form, you have to write it out, or you put it on a typewriter. If you made one error, you have to pull it out, get a new form and start all over. Or you used whiteout. You would white out the letters and then type over it. So then that would make it look messy. But it was a little difficult. So as time went on, to start in 1970, as we got to the maybe 75, 76, it became a problem that people had games on their computer because now they didn't do any work. They just sat around playing games on their computer because they were really good at it. So then I had to take, and this was a complete Air Force because everybody was doing this now, I had to take the games off and just tell people to get to work. So that was the beginning of computers. But it's a good example of how people engage with new technologies back in the 70s. They didn't want anything to do with it. The older people did not like new technology, even the younger kids, because no one has ever had that before. So now everybody's getting used to it. So now we're in 1975 and things are getting better. But my attitude was, and when I worked in the Air Force, my job consisted of understanding computers and how they worked. I was always considered an expert in my field. In fact, me keeping up with the fastest moving technology during my work life probably helped to get me promoted faster because nobody else wanted to do it. And I really liked that a lot. So I loved the technology. I embraced it early. Always realized if I wanted to stay at the front of the pack and to get the most out of my professional career, I had to keep up with the changes and the times as they got more modern. And that's exactly what I did. I can say that I do adapt well and quickly learn new technologies simply because I'm open to such changes. I was open to changes when I was younger and always gave my best effort to learn, to work with the new technologies instead of opposing them. That was always the way I was. So if there was anything new and nobody wanted to do it, I always took it on. So not only was it in my career field, it was all across civil engineering. And so what happened was I learned. I learned about other people's problems, solutions to their problems, how to do the job, because I liked what I was doing. Whereas many people oppose those technologies. Well, again, the message is, try not to oppose something that's new, because if you engage in it and you understand it better than everybody else, people are going to lean on you to teach them how to do something. So you never go away if you keep up with the times. So my message for you today, Ezra, is that if you have to be open to others, you have to be open to others' ideas and thoughts. Keep up with the newest of the technologies and work harder than everyone else around you. You'll find that others, both your peers and your supervisors, will look to you for advice and guidance. And that's what happened to me. And like I said, I became the expert in many areas because I enjoyed that. I enjoyed learning something that other people shunned. So it was a good lesson for me at that time. So lastly, here's a quote and life message from your grandfather that I always used when I was growing up in my job and when I told others when they asked me for my guidance or my opinion. I would always tell them, try to be smarter than your boss. If you practice this very simple task, you'll find success and a feeling of accomplishment during your life. All you got to do is apply this very simple principle. Be smarter than your boss, be smarter than your peers, and always, always look to new technology.